all given life sentences for their crimes. This severe of a sentencing had not occurred for white men in the South. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling another what happened to. This one in particular is about Betty Jean Owens. And today you find out who she is and what happened to her. But before we get on with this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see more of me, because you know you'll want to. Give this video a thumbs up, comment down below what else you'd like to see from me on my channel, and don't forget to turn your post notifications to know every time that I upload or go live, because I do quite often. And without further ado, let's get into the story. Okay, so Betty Jean Owens was an African-American woman who was brutally raped by 4 white men in Tallahassee, Florida. As you guys know, I'm from Tallahassee, Florida, born and raised. And to hear that this happened in my own town is so shocking. But this was way before my time. This is in 1956. Like, I don't even think my mom was born yet. Wait, yes she was. Yeah, my mom was already born. She was like 6. Her trial was significant in Florida and the South as a whole because the white men were all given life sentences for their crimes. This severe of a sentencing had not occurred for white men in the South, especially being accused of rape by a black woman, like, ever. And it says, for example, in the case of Reese Taylor, who was gang raped by 6 white men in Alabama, the men were never found guilty of any charges and released from jail with minimal fines. If you haven't seen that video, I've already done what happened to Reese Taylor. I'll put an end card for you so you can go watch that if you haven't, and I'll probably leave it in the description. Okay, so let's go to the attack. So this happened on May 2nd, 1959. 4 white men, William Collinsworth, Ollie Stoudemire, Patrick Scarsborough, and David Beagles, those are the 4 men's names, set out together to find a black woman to sexually assault. They approached a car at Jake Gather Park armed with shotguns and switchblades. If you're gonna ask me, do I know where that is? I don't know where Jack.
He needs some milk.
I do not know where Jake Gather Park is. I'm not familiar with that name, but I may have been there. I just don't know all the park names in my town. Patrick Scarsborough pressed his shotgun against the African-American driver's nose and ordered the occupants out of the car. 4 African-Americans stepped out of the car, 2 men, 2 women. All 4 in the car were students at FAMU, Florida A&M University, which is that African HBCU in my town. Scarsborough forced the 2 black men to kneel to the ground, and David Beagles held 2 black women at knife point. Scarsborough ordered the black men, Richard Brown and Thomas Butterfield, to leave, and they slowly drove away. The 2 black women left at the hands of the 4 white men were Edna Richardson and Betty Jean Owens. Edna Richardson broke free of the men and ran into a nearby park, leaving Betty Jean Owens alone with her attackers. Beagles promised to release her only if she did what they wanted her to do. They drove her to the edge of town and subsequently raped her 7 times. Edna Richardson and the other 2 male students were able to make it back to their car and went to the local police station to report what happened to them. The officer on duty that night was a 19-year-old intern, Joseph D. Cook Jr. To the surprise of many people, he called backup and searched for Owens. The officer spotted the assailant's car and a chase ensued. Eventually, the men pulled their car over and muffled screams of Owens could be heard from the car. She was bound and gagged on the backseat floorboard. The 4 men were arrested and taken to jail. The 4 men did not take their arrest seriously and joked around with each other on the way to prison. All 4 men confessed in writing to have abducted Owens at gunpoint and raping her. So they all admitted to raping her and taking her by gunpoint. Reactions to the rape, which I can understand why they would be surprised that I'm just gonna shoot a shot out here that the 19-year-old police intern, Joseph D. Cook Jr. was white, and they were surprised that he actually did anything because, you know, in the South back in the day, especially during this era, just like Reese Taylor, if a black woman got raped, like, what do you want us to do about it? Like, okay, they didn't care. They didn't, especially about women, even, like, they didn't care. They weren't gonna do anything. 9 times out of 10, they were gonna get off scot-free. Maybe go to prison for like a year. Maybe something would happen. Pay a fine or something. But other than that, nothing would happen. This is the first case where all 4 of her attackers are sentenced to prison for life sentences. Life. And she's black and they're all white. This is monumental for a step in this time for civil rights. Like, the system actually worked for her this time. It worked for her. It kept these men off the street. It kept them from doing it to another FAMU girl, or any girl at that matter. Okay, so this is the reactions to the rape. Okay, so it says, after FAMU students learned of the attack on Owens, a small group planned an armed march to City Hall. This march would symbolize the protection of black womanhood with guns as the whites protected white womanhood. Other student leaders argued against an armed march and instead planned a unity demonstration. 1,500 students entered the Lee Auditorium to demand justice for Owens, and the student leaders announced that they would petition the governor for a speedy and impartial trial. The following day, over 1,000 students gathered with signs and prayers that were broadcast over news media, and many of these students connected the events to other issues in the struggle for black freedom, such as the desegregation issues in Little Rock, Arkansas. These students held up posters with scenes from Little Rock that read, quote, "My God, how much more of this can we take?" unquote. Even the BBC broadcast segments of the FAMU student demonstrations. As a result of the prominent media coverage, student protests, and a threat to boycott classes, Judge W. May Walker called together a grand jury into a special session on May 6, 1959. So this happened to her May 2nd. 4 days later, she's literally in court. Like, that's the speediest trial I've ever seen. I've never heard of a trial going on after the crime was committed. 4 days later, they're in trial for this. Alright, so the trial. More than 200 black spectators entered the courtroom that day to watch the trial. A nurse accompanied Owens because she was still undergoing treatment for injuries as well as depression. All 4 men pleaded innocent. The shock of the spectators in the courtroom. The innocence pleas made a jury trial mandatory. This case was significant because for the first time in Florida, a judge sent white defendants charged with raping a black woman to jail to await their trial. Previously, Florida had never executed a white man for raping a black woman, and many thought this could be the trial to change that. Attitudes about the trial varied among black leaders. Ella Baker, the director of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, felt that the evidence in the case was so strong that the jury could not fail to convict. Elijah Muhammad, leader of the Nation of Islam, said that the 4 rapists destroyed the, quote, virginity of our daughters. Furthermore, he explained that the appeals for justice will avail us nothing. We know there is no justice under the American flag. He is not lying. The Pittsburgh Courier wrote that the trial would most likely end in acquittal, although the case was as open and shut as a case can be. Following the indictment of the 4 men, Martin Luther King Jr. expressed praise for the FAMU student protesters. King explained that they gave hope to all of us who struggle for human dignity and equal justice. So on June 12, 1959, Betty Jean Owens testified on her own behalf in front of 400 witnesses. She retold the events of the attack to the jury in detail. She told the jury, "I was so scared. There was nothing I could do with 4 men, a knife, and a gun. I couldn't do anything but what they said." The defense attorneys worked diligently to prove that Owens had consented to the attack and argued that if a rape did occur, that she would have sustained more serious injuries. The doctors that treated Owens told the jury that her injuries resulted in a 5-day hospital stay and that she was in terrible condition. When the prosecution rested its case, the defense attorneys claimed that the state had failed to do anything but prove sexual intercourse had occurred and called for an acquittal. Judge Walker denied the motion, and the defense was set to return the next day to present their case. The defense attorney claimed that the boys were intoxicated and that the taped confessions were inadmissible. However, under cross-examination, David Beagles admitted that his confession was voluntary. The defense tried to present the men as reputable and incapable of committing such a heinous crime. In another attempt to sway the jury, they characterized Owens as a Jezebel, who therefore could not have been raped. Jezebel is like a term for like a hoe, a slut, a walker of the night, prostitute if you may. The jury read the verdict out loud, guilty with a recommendation for mercy. The recommendation for mercy part of the sentence kept the 4 men from facing the electric chair. Judge Walker deferred sentencing for 15 days and sent the 4 men to Rufford Prison, now Florida State Prison. On June 15, 1959, Judge Walker sentenced all 4 men to life in prison. Following the sentence, Owens told the reporters, "I feel better now for the first time since it happened. For the first time, I feel safe." Years later, in 1965, David Beagles was paroled. 4 years after he was released, he tracked down an African-American woman he thought was Owens and murdered her and buried her in a shallow grave. However, he murdered Betty Jean Robinson Houston, a different woman. shaking my head. This story is just like Reese Taylor's, but the outcome was so much different. It was so much better. It makes me feel better because for once the system actually worked for African American. It worked for them. They got what they deserved. They got life prison sentences, although one of them was paroled, which shouldn't have happened because it just shouldn't have. Like, no, life sentence, you do your time. No, you're not getting out. And then on top of that, he's paroled, so they think, oh, he's good. He goes out and murders somebody to get revenge on her. Like, how you gonna get revenge on her for putting you in prison when you shouldn't have done what you did? And now he killed an innocent woman. So we're gonna look and see if we can find anything else on this. As far as I know, I've done research on this prior because I was supposed to do this, but unfortunately, I found nothing on these 4 men. I don't know if they're still alive. I don't know if they're still in prison. I don't know if they got out. I know nothing, to be honest. And there's really no much record left for Betty Jean Owens. There's not really much I could find on this, to be honest. It's very minimal that I could actually find other than this Wikipedia. Other than that, there's not too much left on this case, unfortunately, and I would love to know why. So yeah, unfortunately, that's all I can find on this case. If I can find some videos and insert them, I definitely will. I'll insert pictures of her. I don't know what the men look like. Hopefully they have newspaper clippings. I'll also put that in as well. But yeah, unfortunately, this is all I could find on the trial. There's not too much on this, and it's crazy because this was a transcending case, especially for African American women and African Americans in general, because it meant like, hey, maybe once in a while we can get some justice in this damn country. Maybe once in a while we can get some justice. And the only bad part about this is, besides not knowing if she's still alive or not, which I hope she is, but I have literally no idea. I really want to know if these 4 men are still in prison. Are they still serving their time, or was it just for show? Like, oh yeah, give them life in prison, but yeah, like they did how many years later? 6 years later, they let one of them out who killed somebody. So I don't know if they actually sent them away to literally be sent away for life and never come out, or did they get sent away for life in prison and then they're all been paroled and they're out and about living their lives. I have no idea. I don't know anything beyond that. So there you have it, folks. That was a Betty Jean Owens, a woman that was raped by 4 white men at knife and gunpoint, lived to tell the tale, and got justice. That's unheard of. If you want more stories like this, make sure you comment it down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see more of me, because you know you want to. Give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to turn on your post notifications to know every time that I upload or go live on YouTube. And I will see you, my friends, in another case. Bye, friends.